Yeah, we had a recovery day yesterday. Get everyone into recovery, and then start training today in preparation for Bristol. But that's what it is when these quick turnarounds. So we start our preparation today.
Well, what kind of a challenge is that, and also how much of a challenge is it with the number of away games you've had so far?
Yeah, I think will this be our fifth out of the first 6 games away games? Yeah, look, it's tough. It's not easy, but it's the way it's fallen for us. And it's just like anything. There's always periods in this league where you have quick turnarounds. Even when it's consecutive league games. So it's not ideal but that's the same for everyone pretty much. And we're just used to doing that. So we just get our preparation in and used to 2 or 3 day build-ups and just plan for what's ahead of us and get ready for it.
It's not that long ago since you were down there when the league restarted and you got a result down there. Have they changed much?
Yeah, they've changed a bit. Obviously, it's a squad that's been heavily invested in over the last 3 or 4 years. So I think the expectation down there has always been to make the playoffs and promotion. And they've invested again this season, and I'm sure that their aim is there. So again, we're just in a phase where, especially with the league games, we're facing teams that their remits are definitely to be up there this season. So we've done well with the first 2 against these type of teams, and it's going to be another tough one. They obviously had a really good start. I know they played last night. They've made a lot of changes, but it's going to be another tough game. But if we can perform anywhere like we did in the game down there after the lockdown, I think like anything, we'd be in a good position to try and take points from the game.
How encouraged are you by the start you've made so far?
Yeah, obviously we wanted to get off to a positive start. That was the whole aim. We've had a positive start, and we need to continue. Our aim is to try and continue that all the way up to the international break. So we've got 2 league games left. They're both difficult games. They're all tough, but we want to try and continue that. And we know our aim is to get as many points as early as possible. So I think you've seen the attitude towards that and the idea behind it. And we're trying to show that in all the games. We haven't got any games to waste. We know that. And we're trying to make the most of every single game. So it won't be any different for this Sunday.
Usual question, any breakthrough in the transfer market in terms of getting someone in?
No, not at the moment. As I said to you after the game against Fulham, I've probably said to you for the last week or so, we're in talks with certain targets, but nothing imminent at the moment, hopefully. As I said, my hope is that there could be something before the weekend, but there's nothing definite about that.
Finally, the EFL is considering bringing back mandatory testing, given what happened this week. Do you think that's the safest thing to do? And I just wondered, does Sheffield Wednesday carry on testing anyway, as some Championship clubs have?
Yeah, we haven't tested as regular as what we were doing. The protocols were to be, I think we got tested during pre-season when we returned, and then we tested just before the restart. I think, of course, it's the safest way, but I think also what's a problem for clubs is the implications of the cost. It costs a lot of money to be testing, a group of players and a group of staff, maybe 40, 50 people twice a week, which we were doing. It costs a lot of money, and unfortunately there's no support for that. The clubs have to pay for that themselves, and again, with no revenue coming in and the climate that we're in, it's a heavy expense for teams to pay. So I know that all the clubs, during that lockdown period and what was going to be needed coming out of it, were pushing for help with that from the authorities, but in the end, nothing was given, and the clubs had to pay for himself, and that's an expensive thing to do. So I think there's a lot of problems with that in terms of across the board, especially in the EFL. Across all the leagues, it's an expense that a lot of clubs can't afford. So we have to see, but safety is the paramount. We haven't had any issues with that, but of course, it's the safest way. But whether that happens or not, again, there's a big expense for a lot of clubs. Some clubs can afford it a little bit easier, but I think the majority can't. So obviously there has to be some sort of help or common ground to be reached for that.
Is this a critical period for the game, to stay safe, but also to continue without crowds? Because it looks as if there's nothing imminent in that regard about getting fans back in. Yeah,
it was a big blow the other day, I think. It just looked like we were starting to get back to a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel where, we were trialling. I think it was 1,000 fans, wasn't it? I think across 10 clubs that came in, and I think everyone's just looking forward to it. I think everyone's, I wouldn't say fed up, but I think we've had enough of behind closed doors now. We wanted to. There's nothing more than going to a game. Nothing more you want as a player and staff and manager than having a crowd in there behind you, especially in the situation we're in. So it is what it is now. We can only, like we said, all the way through the lockdown, for all of us, you can only follow the rules and the advice. And unfortunately, that's been the advice. There's a little bit of questioning what behind it. I think the reason why was for crowds outside the ground, but of course, we didn't ever expect it to be straight away fully allowed to be back in, and you've got 20, 30,000 people. We knew it was always going to be a staggered one. So I don't quite understand the reasonings why they're not allowed back in terms of if the only worry is fans outside the ground. Well, if there's not going to be 20, 30,000 people and they're going to stagger it, I don't see where the problem would be. But look, it is what it is. We just got to get on with it and stay focused on what we need to do. Clubs can't afford to have no revenue. You might have be able to get some contingency plans in for these first months or whatever it is, but to start going in or talk of possibilities of a year without a crowd being in there, it's just, I think it's unthinkable for a lot of clubs, the majority of clubs. I think it's big trouble ahead. I said it before, it's not fair just to say, right, the Premier League have got money, they should just help. But I think there's definitely something that needs to be done, and whether that can be worked with all the relevant authorities and governing bodies and the Premier League, obviously, because that's where the biggest revenue is. There needs to be something to help clubs out, because I don't know how a lot of these clubs, are going to survive a potential year without any revenue. I don't think many businesses, you think of any business in the world, to go a year without revenue, or I don't know how you can survive. And I think the mistake that people make is looking at football and thinking football's just full of money. It's not. I think it's not as simple as that, and it's not as true as that. The very, very top end, the elite end, there is more money available, but even they can't afford to lose revenue. But yeah, definitely within the EFL, it's a big concern. So again, I don't know the complete answer to that, but you'd like to think that football will look after itself, and the governing bodies will. The main priority is to look after football, make sure clubs don't get into that position. So we'll see what happens. I know there's a lot of people advocating for help and how to go about it. I'm not an expert on that, but I think that my main concern is for us as a club, as Sheffield Wednesday, and as big a club as it is, we still can't afford to go a year without revenue. Again, the perception of football is everyone's rich, everyone's got money. Do you know what I mean? And it's easy to throw it at footballers, this and that, and the clubs are this and that. They're the same business as anything else. They have the same struggles as any other business. It's a misconception. So the government have bailed out quite a few sectors, quite rightly. Great. They've throughout the whole lockdown period, that some of the things that they put in place, I think, was excellent. We're probably one of the governments out across the world that did the biggest sort of, call it a bailout or whatever you want. I think they need to apply that to football and not just assume the perception of football that everyone's got money and everyone's rich and everyone's, it doesn't work like that. We're the same business as anything else. And if they've helped the other sector, they need to help this sector. Do you know what I mean? With sport, I think they need to put something in place that can support club. To ask a business to go a year without money, without any support, when they're supporting other sectors, I think it's not acceptable, is it? But I think it's all down to a perception thing where they just think football can look after itself. It's got its own climate. It's the same as any business in the world. So again, I don't know the answer, but you'd like to think that authorities and certain, governing bodies can help, and the government can help that. They need it. Again, all the governing bodies and the people that support football, authorities that are in charge, PFA are part of that. It's to come together with a plan. I don't know the plan. I don't know the ins and outs financially of how all of that works. But what I do know is football is our thing. Do you know what I mean? We need to protect it, and everyone needs help. In this climate, there's no business in the world, no matter what industry you're in, that can survive a year without revenue, without causing a lot of damage. And we're no different. So they do need to come together, and the government need to support it. I think that's what's happened. I don't know how that happens, but that how has to happen. Otherwise, we could face some turbulent times with football clubs, in these next 6 months, and people think they can survive forever. No, you can't. A potential year without revenue, I don't see how anyone can survive that.